Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe and turn on notification.
The Tuesday began with a statistical probability of 0.0% for catastrophe. That was how Lucas Thorne viewed the world. He was 34 years old. A man who made his living calculating the likelihood of disasters. For a major insurance conglomerate. He dealt in actuarial tables. In the predictability of human error. And the certainty of mathematics. His life with Elena was the control group in his grand experiment of existence. Stable, variable-free, and immaculately curated. They lived in a neighborhood where the lawns were manicured to within an inch of their lives, and the silence was heavy with the implication of wealth. Elena, 33, was a pharmaceutical sales representative. She was the kinetic energy to Lucas's potential energy. She was vibrant, fluid, and possessed a social charm that Lucas admired, but did not possess. They had been married for 5 years. 5 years of what Lucas recorded as optimal partnership. At 7:15 in the morning, the kitchen was bathed in the pale, sterile light of dawn. The smell of roasted Arabica coffee hung in the air. A consistent variable. Elena was rushing. This was not unusual. Her territory was vast. She wore a charcoal pencil skirt, and a cream silk blouse. Her movements were sharp. Hurried. "I am going to be late," Elena said, grabbing a piece of toast. She kissed Lucas on the cheek. The contact lasted exactly 0.5 seconds. It was dry. Perfunctory. "Dr. Silas has a grand rounds presentation at 8. And if I don't catch him before that, I lose the window for the new neurologist portfolio." "Drive safely," Lucas said. He did not look up from his tablet where he was reviewing a risk assessment for a shipping lane in the South Pacific. "Rain is forecast for the afternoon." "You and your forecasts," she laughed. The sound was light. Airy. "Bye, darling." The heavy oak front door clicked shut. The lock engaged. The sound of her German sedan reversing out of the driveway faded into the ambient hum of the suburbs. Lucas remained at the island counter. He took a sip of his black coffee. The house settled back into silence. It was his remote work day. He enjoyed the solitude. It allowed for maximum efficiency. He stood up to rinse his cup. And that was when he saw it. On the marble countertop, next to the fruit bowl, sat Elena's personal phone. It was plugged into the charger. She had taken her work phone, but left her personal cell behind. Lucas frowned. It was a minor deviation from the norm, but not a critical failure. He wiped his hands on a towel and reached for the device, intending to call her work number from the landline to alert her. She could probably swing back. She couldn't have been more than 5 minutes away. As his fingers brushed the cold glass of the screen, the device lit up. It was not a call. It was a notification from an encrypted messaging application that Elena had never mentioned using. The banner did not show text. It showed a media preview. Lucas froze. His brain, trained to analyze data patterns, struggled to categorize the image. It was a photograph of a hotel suite. The aesthetic was modern. Minimalist luxury. In the center of the frame was a king-sized bed. The duvet turned down invitingly. A bottle of champagne in an ice bucket on the nightstand. The lighting was dim. Suggestive. Below the image, a single line of text appeared from a sender identified only as S. "The room is ready. I'm already imagining you in it." Lucas felt a physical sensation that was entirely foreign to him. It started in his gut. A cold, heavy drop. Like an elevator cable, snapping. His heart rate, usually a steady 60 beats per minute, accelerated, rapidly. He stared at the screen until the backlight faded. And the phone went black again. He stood in the center of his pristine kitchen. The quiet of the house, once comforting, now felt predatory. Rationalization protocol. Initiated. Perhaps it was a wrong number. S could be anyone. Maybe a spam bot, maybe a prank. But the tone was familiar. It was intimate. "I'm already imagining you in it." That was not the language of a bot. That was the language of anticipation. He looked at the door Elena had just walked out of. She had mentioned Dr. Silas. S. Lucas placed the phone back on the counter. He took a step back. He needed to sit down. He walked to his home office, sat in his ergonomic chair, and stared at his dual monitors. The shipping lane risk assessment waited for him. Thousands of variables. Wind speed. Piracy rates. Hull integrity. But for the first time in his professional life, Lucas could not focus on the numbers. The image of the hotel room had burned itself onto his retina. Who was S? Why was his wife receiving photos of hotel beds at 7:30 in the morning? He waited for 10 minutes. Surely, if she had forgotten the phone, she would realize it. She would come back. He listened for the sound of her car. Silence. 20 minutes passed. The silence stretched into a suffocating void. Lucas stood up. The analyst in him was taking over. In his line of work, you did not ignore a data anomaly. You investigated it. Until the root cause was identified. Trust was a variable, yes. But verification was the constant. He walked back to the kitchen. The phone sat there. An innocent slab of glass and metal that held the potential to destroy his entire calculated existence. The human mind has a fail-safe mechanism that rejects trauma before it is fully processed. Lucas stood over the phone for another hour, pacing the kitchen floor. He drank 3 glasses of water. He tried to work. He failed. At 9 o'clock, he picked up the device. He knew the passcode. They had shared everything. Passwords, bank accounts, location data. Or so he had believed. Transparency was the foundation of their contract. He typed in the 6 digits. The date of their engagement. The lock screen dissolved. His thumb hovered over the messaging app. It was a green icon. Innocuous. Meant for privacy. He opened it. The chat with S was at the top. Lucas did not just read the messages. He absorbed them. He became a forensic auditor of his own humiliation. He scrolled up. Past the photo of the hotel room. Past the morning greeting. He scrolled back through days. Then weeks. Then months. The archive went back. 8 months. 8 months. 240 days. As the data unfolded, the floor seemed to liquefy beneath him. This was not a drunken one-night stand. This was not a momentary lapse of judgment at a conference. This was a relationship. A fully formed, parallel existence. S was indeed Dr. Silas. The context clues were undeniable. They discussed hospital politics, his neurology department, her sales targets. But those were the garnish. The meat of the conversation was visceral, raw, and explicit. There were photographs. Dozens of them. Elena in lingerie that Lucas had never seen. Black lace. Red silk. Elena taking selfies in the mirror of bathrooms he didn't recognize. Videos sent from her car. Blowing kisses. Whispering things. She used to whisper to Lucas. "I can't wait to feel you," she had written 3 days ago. The weekend felt endless. Being home is so draining. Lucas stopped scrolling. He reread that line. Being home is so draining. He felt the bile rise in his throat. He forced himself to continue. He needed the full data set. He needed to understand the scope of the damage. And then he found the mockery. This was the variable he hadn't accounted for. Infidelity was a biological imperative for some. A weakness of the flesh. But this was cruelty. Elena. October 14th. He's talking about refinancing the mortgage again. He made a spreadsheet. God, he's so boring, Silas. It's like living with a calculator. S. October 14th, at least the calculator pays the bills. So you can buy that dress I like. Elena. October 14th, true. But he's so predictable. Missionary position. Lights off. Done in 12 minutes. I have to pretend every single time. It's exhausting. S. October 14th, I'll make up for it on Tuesday. No talking. Just action. Lucas stared at the words. Boring. Predictable. Pretend. He remembered October 14th. He had cooked dinner that night. Risotto. He had thought it was a romantic evening. He had shown her the financial plan that would allow them to retire 5 years early. She had smiled. Touched his hand. And told him he was brilliant. She had been texting Silas. Under the table. The betrayal shifted in that moment. It transformed from a sharp stab in the heart, to a cold, creeping necrosis in the brain. She wasn't just sleeping with another man, she was dismantling Lucas's dignity. For sport. She was bonding with her lover. By dehumanizing her husband. He read on. There were plans. Silas was working on leaving his wife. A woman named Margaret who came from old money. Elena was biding her time until Silas gave the signal. They were planning a future. They discussed apartments in the city. They discussed how to hide assets. During the inevitable divorces. Lucas put the phone down. He felt strangely calm. It was the calm of a man who has looked into the reactor core, and seen the meltdown. There is no panic in the face of absolute destruction. Only acceptance. He walked to the bathroom and splashed cold water on his face. He looked at his reflection. He didn't look different. He looked like Lucas Thorne. Actuary. But the man behind the eyes was gone. The loving husband had been deleted. In his place was the analyst. Cold, objective, and terrifyingly efficient. He went back to the kitchen. He took his own phone and began to take high-resolution photographs of every single message. Every image. Every timestamp on Elena's screen. He did not simply screenshot them. He needed external proof that could not be claimed as doctored. He spent 2 hours documenting the evidence. He uploaded the files to a secure, encrypted cloud server. Then, he sat down to wait. The sun moved across the sky, casting long, stretching shadows across the living room floor. Lucas did not turn on the lights. He sat on the single armchair that faced the entryway. He was a statue. In the gathering gloom, he had placed Elena's phone in the exact center of the coffee table. It sat there like a monolith. The waiting was tactical. He wanted the adrenaline to leave his system. He wanted to ensure that when he spoke, his voice would not tremble. He practiced his breathing. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds out. At 7:25, in the evening, the headlights swept across the front window. The garage door rumbled open, then shut. The sound of the key in the lock was loud. In the silent house, Elena entered. She looked disheveled, but happy. She was carrying her briefcase and 2 bags of groceries. Lucas, she called out. Why are all the lights off? It's like a tomb in here. She flicked the switch. The recessed lighting flooded the room. She blinked, adjusting to the brightness. Then, she saw him. Lucas was sitting motionless. His hands folded in his lap. His legs crossed. He was staring directly at her. His expression. Unreadable. Honey. She walked further into the room, setting the bags down on the floor. Are you okay? I tried to call you on the landline earlier, but you didn't pick up. I realized I left my phone. She stopped. Her eyes landed on the coffee table. The phone was unlocked. The screen was set to always on. It displayed the chat log with S. The most recent photo, the hotel bed, was visible. The transformation was instantaneous. It was fascinating to watch. In a clinical sense. The blood drained from Elena's face so quickly. It defied physiology. Her mouth opened. But no sound came out. The confident, vibrant woman who had mocked him for being a calculator, vanished. In her place stood a terrified child. Caught with a match in a gunpowder factory. She dropped her purse. It hit the floor with a heavy thud. Lucas, she whispered. It was a strangled sound. Lucas did not stand up. He did not shout. He simply pointed a finger. At the phone. I know, he said. His voice was devoid of inflection. It was a flat line. I know about the hotel. I know about the 8 months. I know about the boring calculator. I know about Dr. Silas. Elena's knees gave way. She literally collapsed. Catching herself on the arm of the sofa. No. No, Lucas, please. Let me explain. Explain? Lucas tilted his head slightly. The data is comprehensive, Elena. There is no ambiguity. You have been sleeping with Silas since February. You have met him at the Grand Hyatt, the Street, Regis, and twice in his office. You have spent $4,000 of our joint savings on dinners and gifts for him. And you find our life exhausting. It meant nothing, she screamed. Tears suddenly erupting. She scrambled toward him, reaching for his knees. He manipulated me. I was confused. It was just. It was a fantasy, Lucas. It wasn't real. You are real. This is real. Lucas pulled his legs back, avoiding her touch as if she were contagious. Do not touch me, he said. The command was soft, but cut through the air like a whip. I love you, she sobbed, her face red and blotchy. I'm so sorry. I'll stop. I'll call him right now. I'll quit my job. We can go to counseling. Please, Lucas. Don't throw away 5 years. For a mistake. Lucas looked down at her. He felt a flicker of the old instinct. The urge to comfort her. But then the image of the text message flashed in his mind, missionary position, done in 12 minutes. A mistake. Is forgetting to turn off the oven, Lucas said. A mistake. Is a typo in a spreadsheet. 8 months of deception is not a mistake, Elena. It is a campaign. It is a strategy. He stood up. He towered over her. And the worst part isn't the sex, he continued, his voice dropping an octave. It's the disrespect. You laughed at me. You. And he. You laughed at the life I built for us. You laughed at the safety I provided. I didn't mean it, she wailed. I was just trying to impress him. I was stupid. You were cruel, Lucas corrected. And I do not cohabit with cruelty. The next hour was a blur of hysteria on her part, and icy detachment on his. Elena cycled through the stages of grief at high speed. Denial, bargaining, depression. She offered him everything. She offered to sign a post-nuptial agreement. She offered to move them to a different state. Lucas simply checked his watch. I have already contacted a separation attorney, he stated. He will be in touch with you tomorrow morning. I have also frozen the joint credit cards. As I noticed you purchased a watch for Silas last week. Using our travel fund. Elena looked at him with wide, horrified eyes. You already did all that? Today? I had 12 hours, Lucas said. I am very efficient. How can you be so cold? She whispered, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. Did you ever love me? Or was I just another number to you? Lucas paused. That struck a nerve. He walked to the window and looked out at the darkened street. I loved you more than anything, he said, his back to her. I calculated every decision in my life. To maximize your happiness. I bought this house because you liked the light in the kitchen. I worked overtime to fund the vacations you wanted. I was boring. Because I wanted you to be safe. I was predictable. Because I wanted you to never have to worry. He turned around. His face was a mask of stone. But you didn't want safety. You wanted drama. You wanted Silas. He walked to the hallway closet and pulled out a suitcase he had packed earlier. You can stay here tonight, he said. I have booked a room at a hotel. Not the Grand Hyatt, obviously. I will return tomorrow at noon with a moving crew to collect my personal effects. I expect you to be gone by the end of the week. The house is in my name, purchased before the marriage. My lawyer will explain the eviction process. If you refuse to leave. Lucas, you can't kick me out, she pleaded, standing up, trembling. Where will I go? Go to Silas, Lucas said. He has a big bed. I've seen the pictures. He walked to the door. Elena ran after him, grabbing his arm. He won't take me, she cried out. The truth finally slipping through. He's married. He won't leave Margaret. Lucas looked at her hand on his sleeve. Then up at her eyes. That, Lucas said, sounds like a risk. You should have calculated. He shook her off. Opened the door. And walked out into the night. He did not look back. The ensuing weeks were a masterclass in scorched earth bureaucracy. Lucas did not scream. He did not stalk. And he did not vandalize. He simply applied the law. And the truth. With surgical precision. He hired a forensic accountant to go through their 5 years of finances. He found every dollar Elena had siphoned off for her affair. Dinners. Hotels. Business trips that were actually romantic getaways. The final tally was over $12,000. In the divorce settlement, this amount was deducted from her meager share of the marital assets. But the financial ruin was secondary. Lucas had one final variable to address: Dr. Silas. Lucas debated the ethics of it for exactly one night. He decided that transparency was a universal virtue. If he deserved to know. So did Margaret. He compiled a dossier. It contained the chat logs, the photos, the dates, and the times. He printed it on high-quality paper. He put it in a thick manila envelope. He did not send it anonymously. He included a cover letter with his name and contact information. Dear Mrs. Margaret Vance. Enclosed is documentation regarding the relationship between your husband, Dr. Silas Vance, and my wife, Elena Thorne. I believe you have a right to the full data set. Sincerely, Lucas Thorne. He mailed it via courier to Margaret's private law practice. The explosion occurred 3 days later. Lucas heard about it through the grapevine of the city's professional circle. Margaret Vance was not a woman to be trifled with. She was a high-powered litigation attorney. She did not weep in private. She drove to the hospital where Silas was the chief of neurology. She walked into the main lobby during the lunch rush. She found Silas standing with a group of interns and Elena. Elena was there, trying to sell a new drug to the department. Witnesses described the scene as biblical. Margaret threw the envelope at Silas. The papers scattered across the polished floor. Photos of the hotel room. Text messages about his boring wife. Explicit promises. You told her you were leaving me. Margaret's voice echoed off the marble walls. You told this pharmaceutical girl that I was frigid. Elena tried to intervene. Mrs. Vance, please. Margaret turned on her. And you? You think you're the first? You're the third one in 5 years. He calls you all his soulmate. You're just a cliché, honey. Security had to escort them out. But the damage was done. People had filmed it. The medical board caught wind of it. The hospital administration had a strict code of conduct regarding vendor relations. Elena sleeping with a client on hospital property as per the texts was a massive ethics violation. The pharmaceutical company, fearing a lawsuit from the hospital or Margaret, fired Elena immediately. Silas fared no better. While he wasn't fired, he was stripped of his chairmanship. Margaret filed for divorce. The next day, freezing his assets so effectively that he couldn't even access his checking account. Lucas watched all of this from a distance. He read the updates on social media. He felt no joy. He felt no guilt. He simply felt the satisfaction of an equation balancing out. Action equals reaction. 12 months later, the city was transitioning into autumn. The air was crisp. Lucas Thorne walked out of his gym, a bag slung over his shoulder. He had lost 15 pounds of soft suburban comfort and gained 10 pounds of lean muscle. He wore a fitted coat. He looked sharper, younger. He was no longer the boring calculator. Or perhaps he was, but he owned it now. He had been promoted to director of risk management. He traveled to London and Tokyo. He was waiting at a crosswalk on Fifth Avenue when he saw her. Elena. She was exiting a discount grocery store. She looked different. The glossy shine was gone. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, the roots showing. She wore a coat that looked slightly too large. Perhaps bought second-hand. She looked tired. The vibrant energy was replaced by a nervous, skittish exhaustion. The grapevine had told him she never got another job in big pharma. Her reputation was radioactive. She was working in general retail now. Living in a shared apartment in a less desirable part of town. Silas had ghosted her the moment Margaret served the papers, leaving Elena to drown alone. Lucas stood there, waiting for the light to change. Elena looked up. Her eyes locked onto his. She froze. Her hand went to her throat. She looked at him with a mixture of fear and longing. She took a half step forward, her lips parting as if to say his name. She looked like she wanted to be saved. She looked like she wanted forgiveness. For a moment, Lucas remembered the smell of her perfume. He remembered the way she used to laugh. But then, he ran the calculation. Pros of engagement, none. Cons of engagement, emotional turbulence. Potential manipulation, waste of time. Risk assessment. Hi. A woman walked up beside Lucas. It was Sarah. a structural engineer he had been seeing for 4 months. She was calm, brilliant, and ruthlessly honest. "Ready to go?" Sarah asked, slipping her arm through his. "The reservation is at 8. "Ready," Lucas said. He looked back at Elena one last time. He didn't scowl. He didn't smile. He didn't offer a nod of pity. He simply looked at her as if she were a stranger. A piece of data that was no longer relevant to the current model. He turned his head away. "Who was that?" Sarah asked as they crossed the street, leaving Elena standing alone on the sidewalk. Lucas didn't look back. "No one," he said. "Just a calculation error. I made a long time ago." He tightened his grip on Sarah's arm. And they walked forward into the city lights, leaving the ruins of the past behind them. Unmourned. And unforgotten, but completely, utterly, irrelevant. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next.